She sat in front of the mirror, adorned her wedding attire, gazing at her reflection, feeling like the most beautiful and fortunate woman in the world. Today she had become his forever, the man she had loved for as long as she could remember. Her journey knew bound since he had expressed his love for her. Their relationship had reached a beautiful milestone, and they were now bound together as husband and wife. A lovely smile adorned her lips as she sat lost in thoughts while he was still busy with their guest. In her white wedding gown she looked like a snow princess, radiating elegance and purity. One gazed at the diamond ring on her finger which Jungkook had just put on her today. A beautiful smile was still etched on her lovely face as she remained engaged about the wedding and photo shoot moments with Jungkook. Her cheeks began to blush just then she felt someone's hands on her waist, and she could recognize the person simply by their scent, her eyes closing intensely. She looked in the mirror in front of her and saw him leaning over her, his chin resting on her hair, gazing at her with loving eyes. "Fine, why did you come?" she asked softly, placing her hand on his, which were wrapped around her waist. "Jungkook, when you were blushing in my absence," he replied gently, took her ring-adorned hand and his, and sat down beside her, pulling her closer, and when rested her head on his shoulder, feeling at ease. "I was just missing you around me," she said. "Jungkook, from now on I am only yours and I'll be present before you whenever you want me to. You'll never have to miss me again." He had taken Wine's face in his hand and eventually pressed his lips to her forehead, and Wine had closed her eyes, savoring the touch. "Thank you for being a part of my life and making it beautiful," he whispered. "My dear innocent wife, you look stunning today." He placed a finger under her chin and gently pressed his lips to her chin. "When you look quite handsome today too," she said, gazing at him lovingly and gently ran her hand through his hair. "Jungkook, if the wife is so beautiful, it's only natural that the husband is handsome too," he replied with a smile. "And if I am the one who caught the eye of such a beautiful girl, I couldn't possibly be ugly." They both laughed together, and Van couldn't help but recall the moment when she had first proposed to him, and how Jungkook had not only accepted her love but also expressed his own feeling in such a beautiful way. "Jungkook, you must be tired. Let me help you to get off this heavy dress and jewelry and free your delicate body from it. We can relax and spend some time together." He gently began to remove the pins from her hair. As he raised her locks, he leaned in close to her neck, softly pressing his lips against her skin. He carefully removed the necklace from her neck, placing it on the dressing table while she closed her eyes, savoring the warm, gentle touch of her beloved person and getting lost in his proximity. As he undid the laces of her gown and pressed his lips to her shoulder, Wine clutched the dress in front of her, her breathing growing rapid. "Wine, Jungkook," she called out his name between gasps, and he looked at her, coming back to his senses. "Jungkook, what happened? Are you uncomfortable? Sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable with me. I think I was trying to get too close too quickly," he said, smiling at his own eagerness as he gently brushed her hair over her exposed skin. "Why, no, it's not that. I feel good and comfortable when you are close to me. You are the only person in the world whose proximity brings me comfort," she replied, resting her head on Jungkook's chest as he drew her closer, smiling and pressed his lips to her. "Jungkook, I love you more than anything, Vine. My love for you grows stronger with each passing day," he said, his voice filled with affection, and Vine looked up at him, her eyes locking with his. Jungkook gently took her face in his hand, his eyes filled with love. Wine, always love me, never break this trust and ego of mine, he said, her voice filled with hope as she gazed into his eyes. Jungkook, I promise I'll never break this trust and ego of yours, he replied, his lips inches from her. At night, after dinner with his family, he sat on a rocking chair in the garden, gazing up at the stars in the sky while wine was still inside with the family. He was overjoyed to have her in his life, and since she had come to his house, the atmosphere had become even more lively. His family was happy with her, treating her like a new daughter they had welcomed into their home. Wen walked into the garden, holding two coffee mugs and placed one in front of him. Jungkook immediately turned his attention to her and took the mug from her hand. "You took so long. I have been waiting for you," he said, placing the coffee mug on the table and pulling her into his, wrapping his arms around her as he took a sip of his coffee. When rested her head on his chest, speaking in a soft tone. "I was sitting with everyone inside, having a great time with them. Mom, Dad, Thai and Jaya, they are really nice." And thank you for filling my life with happiness and completing me and my family. Without you, my family wasn't complete and I wasn't complete too. He said, speaking in a tone filled with love as he gently stroked her belly, and Wayne couldn't help but look at his face. "Do you really love me that much?" she asked, looking at him with wonder in her eyes. She was sleeping alone in her room in the evening and Jungkook had gone to the office today. The noise and shouting coming from downstairs disturbed Wan's sleep and she quickly woke up and sat up feeling disturbed due to the commotion coming from downstairs. She hastily put on her slipper and headed downstairs, but her feet stopped on the stair as she heard some heart-wrenching words. The scene in front of was devastating. He was standing and arguing with Mr. John, who was scolding him in anger, while the others stood around him looking shocked and saddened. And behind Jungkook stood a beautiful and modern-looking girl no one had yet noticed fine presence on this trio. Mr. John, have you lost your mind, Jungkook? Are you out of your sense? What are you saying? You got married just 3 days ago and now you are creating a new scene. Mr. Jane was furious while looking straight and stubbornly in front of him, his face also red with anger, and he seemed determined, as if he wouldn't listen to or obey anymore, no matter what. Jungkook, Dad, I don't care. I want to marry Emma, even if you don't agree to this marriage. I'll leave this house and marry Emma anyway, and you can't stop me. He was stubborn and defiant, and seeing his normally obedient son behave like this made Mr. John even angrier and more hurt. Mr. John, and what about Vian, the girl you married just 3 days ago? The innocent one who crazy in love with you. Have you even thought about what will happen to her heart? How she will feel? Jungkook, that's my problem, Dad. I'll handle it. Besides, she's not a big problem for me. She just newly fallen in love with me. She'll get over it soon, but I can't have leave Emma. That she's pregnant. Jungkook were pissed when heard like a dagger, and everyone else was shocked by the revelation while tears began to flow from her eyes. Was her love so worthless to Jungkook that his love for her was so insignificant? Her heartbreaking meant nothing to him, and his constant expression of love were all meaningless and just a show. Different thoughts began to swirl in her mind. His merciless words had such an impact on Vine that she felt like her life was being drained out of her body. Mr. John's hand was about to rest on Jungkook in anger when Vine quickly turned to go downstairs, but her feet fluttered and she fell down the stairs, landing on the floor. The blood from her head wound spread across the floor, and everyone's attention immediately turned to her. They all rushed to her side, except for the one person whose expectation she had been trying to meet. Ty quickly lifted her head off the floor and cradled it in his lap, trying to stop the bleeding, but the blood was flowing like a fountain. One looked at him with her closing eyes, he seeing him standing there unmoved and unfeeling, staring at her with emotionless eyes. Some people were crying, some were trying to stop the bleeding, and some were trying to call an ambulance, but at that moment she only cared about the one person. She was in pain, and he was standing there unmoved, as if her suffering didn't matter to him, as if his presence didn't make any difference. Tears of pain flowed from her eyes, and she closed them, losing consciousness. Seeing her fade away, Ty quickly lifted her in his arms and rushed outside. Everyone was sitting in the hospital, worried about her, worried about the trouble that Jungkook had caused them, and worried about how to tell her their son didn't want her. If it had only been a few days since her happiness had begun, and now their son was going to break her heart in such a way they had no idea. She was lying on the hospital bed fighting for her life, and that person had not even come to ask about her well being yet. Dad had already. Dad looked at his father, who was sitting with his eyes downcast, deep in thoughts. He tried to comfort him by holding his hand. Don't worry, Dad, and don't think too much. Everything will be okay. How will everything be okay? That sweet girl who was living with us like our own daughter, how will we face her after what our son has done? She won't even stay with us. In this, the upbringing I gave him, did I teach him to ruin someone's life like this?
If he was already in a relationship with someone he shouldn't have married. His voice was telling that how much he hurt her and disappointed with his son. Everything will be okay, Dad, he reassured him. Man loves Jungkook very much, and for now, let's just focus on her recovery. I'm sure she'll melt Jungkook heart with her love. What can she do, Ty? You didn't see how stubborn he was being. The whole night had passed and he still has not come to see her. This is how much importance he gave her in his life, and he is going to be a father, and the girl who was giving to give him a child, will he ever leave her? Mrs. John, our son will marry someone else, and after some time he'll have children and start a new family. We will also be busy with our grandchildren, but if someone has been hurt the most in all this, it's why, and she'll never be able to recover from this trauma her whole life. A woman can never forget the betrayal of love. God give her the strength and courage to bear all this. We can't do anything except watching all this in silence. She wiped away her tears and Ty fell deep in thought. He glanced at Jaya, who was standing by the operation theatre door, looking at Payan through the glass and crying. He would never do what Jungkook did. He could never bear to see his wife in pain, and in the situation where was in, he would never leave Jaya's side. He would always love her and take care of her, but Jaya was his wife. He could take care of her, but for the girl he had considered his sister. Just a few days ago he couldn't do anything. He felt interest, hatred for his own helplessness. After a while the operation theatre door opened and the doctor informed them that Vine was recovering and had been shifted to her room. By morning she had regained consciousness and everyone was present in her room. As she opened her eyes slightly she saw everyone around her. "How are you, daughter? Are you okay?" she asked, gently stroking her cheek. "I'm fine, Mama," she replied in a weak voice, looking around the room as everyone asked about her well-being, but her eyes were searching for someone, and as everyone saw her searching gaze, their face fell again, filled with sadness. "Mr. John, child, don't look for him. He didn't come," he said, sitting beside her and gently stroking her head. "Forgive us, child. I apologize for my son, Mystery. We are always with you." "Never think you're alone. We are trying to make him understand, and I hope he'll come around. He's just being a bit foolish right now." Vina's began to well up with tears, but she tried to hold them back, not wanting to add to her dad's worry and embarrassment. She could see the concern and embarrassment on his face, and she didn't want to burden him further. "No, Dad, why are you saying this? I am your daughter and will ask for forgiveness from their daughter. You won't think like this in the future, and you promise me you won't say anything to him. He is going to be a father, and his happiness is tied to this. I am not selfish enough to take that away from him. You should be happy that you are going to be a grandparents." Despite not wanting to, tears began to flow from her eyes, and she spoke, and her smile was on her lips. She was in pain, but she was trying her best to hide it. But everyone was aware of the turmoil brewing inside her. Jia reached out and wiped away her tears, and Maya closed her eyes. The room door opened, and everyone looked at in that direction. The person she had been waiting for had finally arrived, but his face still had the same cold expression. As soon as she saw him, she looked away, and Jungkook also turned her gaze away. Seeing Vine's tear-stained face and her pale complexion and the bandage on her head, "What are you doing here now? It would have been better if you had not come at all," Taeyong said with sarcasm, looking at him. Jungkook, "Sorry to say, Taeyong, I didn't come here to ask about everyone's well-being. I just came to tell you that I am getting married today. If anyone wants to attend the wedding, they can. Otherwise, I can get married without all of you," he said in a heartless tone. His word pierced someone's heart like a dagger, causing a sharp pain, and the faces of everyone else in the room showed pity for Jungkook, who was losing someone for whom he was her entire world due to his own selfishness.
I glanced at the girl lying on the hospital bed and laughed. Why are you still sitting here? Your son and my husband are getting married. Mama, we should go home and prepare for the wedding. It wouldn't be good if the family doesn't attend the wedding. She tried to get up and Mrs. John helped her. Mrs. John, child, you are not feeling well first and one of us will go. One, no mom, we'll all go and we need to hurry up and prepare for the wedding. She was speaking as she was extremely happy, but the tears streaming down her face were testament to her pain. Mrs. John, child, you don't look okay to me. Are you okay? She had wiped away her tears with love and was worried about her mental state, and tears began to well up in her own eyes. Why, yes, Mom, I'm perfectly fine. I don't worry about me. Just focus on preparing for your sunbathing, and people don't cry on happy occasions. She wiped away her mother's tears and got down from the bed, put on her shoes, and walked out with everyone else following her.
As they entered the house, they saw the servant preparing for the wedding in the garden. One priest stopped at the side of the decorating garden and her gaze involuntarily went to the sitting area in the garden. Just yesterday, the two of them were together there, so close to each other, and he was so happy with her. Then why did he change suddenly and become so distant that he could even bear to look at her? Her eyes welled up with tears again, but she held them back with a smile and walked towards the servants. But someone had noticed not just her face. Hey, stop, don't put those flowers there. They don't look good there. They look better with the purple ones. You're wedding planner, don't you even know that? She was interrupted the servant and they turned to look at the sweet girl who was standing behind them, speaking with tears in her eyes, a bandage on her head, and a disheveled appearance. But despite her appearance, she was speaking sensibly. Jack, you're right, ma'am. We didn't pay attention to that. Thank you, ma'am. We'll fix it now. They quickly began to correct their mistake and she started directing the other servants to complete the preparation. The wedding was in the evening and they had to finish everything before then. They had all seen her mental and physical strength as well as her generosity, but their hearts were not big enough, not they weren't strong enough to watch her stand there. They all quietly retreated to their respective rooms. More than 2 hours had passed, and she had been constantly moving around and giving orders she was executing, and her health was not good enough to handle so much work. Suddenly, darkness began to cut her vision, and she felt dizzy. She fell hard to the ground. A person who was constantly watching for from afar wanted to step forward, but before he could, a servant nearby rushed to her side, helped her up, and sat her down in the chair, giving her water. Meanwhile, he was extremely angry for her carelessness. Servants, are you okay, ma'am? Yes, I am fine. Her eyes were tightly closed due to the severe headache, and she was holding her head in her hand. Jack, you don't look okay, ma'am, and maybe your head would be bleeding again. The bandage on your head is getting red. You should go get it checked. Okay, fine, I'll go check it out. You all go finish your work. Servant, should we drop you off inside? Why, no, I'll go myself, and you all leave from here. And with that, she carefully got up and started walking slowly towards the inside, taking small steps, while the others returned to their task. She entered the house and for the first time she didn't know where to go. She glanced at the room upstairs where she had stayed a few days ago as someone's bride, but that person was no longer her and neither was the room. With a bitter smile on her lips, she headed toward the guest room downstairs. As she entered the room, she lay down on the bed, her body and head aching severely, but at that moment her heart was in so much pain that she didn't feel the physical pain. As she thought of the unfaithful person, tears began to flow from her eyes and soaked into the bed. Why? How much does a woman need to love someone to never betray them for another woman? Does woman's love mean nothing? A whisper of pain escaped her lips and she closed her eyes. The person she had loved the most had turned her love into a punishment, and in return for her love, he had given her a lifetime of tears. After lying down for a while, her phone started ringing. She took the call after seeing Thailand numbers on the screen. Thailand, where are you, Guwan? I have been looking for you for a while. Are you okay? He asked as soon as she answered. Yes, I am fine. I am the downstairs guest room. Why were you looking for me? Thailand, I just couldn't find you anywhere in the house, so I wanted to check on you. Why, don't worry about me, Dayang. I am fine. Are you all ready for the wedding? No, I told Dad that he and Mom will go, and I don't want to attend. Dayang, you're his only brother, and regardless of whether anyone else supports his decision or not, you should be by his side. At the very least, don't oppose him. And I don't want to hear that again. You're not attending the wedding. Just get ready quietly and meet me at the wedding. Then I will never support him in his wrong decision. And okay, I'll go, but you are not going to the wedding. Wine. You are not even in the good health. You should rest. Wine. No, thank. I will go to the wedding. I want to see my own destruction with my own eyes from last time. And it's my punishment and lesson for trusting someone. I learned from my mistake and never make the mistake of trusting someone again for the rest of my life. Time is running out. Come quickly and get ready for the wedding. She had cut off the call and wiping away her silently flowing tears, she went to the washroom and looked at her face in the mirror. She looked at her condition and it was such that even a stranger would have felt pity for her, but that stone-hearted person had no pity for her, not even for a moment. She turned on the faucet and splashed water on her face several times, but it was all in vain. She was hurting inside, and the water was unable to erase the size of pain from her face. Frustrated, she dried her face with a towel and came out. The wedding had started, all the guests had arrived, and she was sitting at the very back with the servants dressed in a casual clothes. Just moments later, he was walking towards the stage, holding his new bride's hand, and the sound of applause was echoing everywhere. One saw his hand, which had held her just a few days ago, now holding someone else, and her eyes welled up with tears. Her throat hurt as she struggled to hold back her tears, and then lifting her hands, she clapped for him. As he walked towards the stage, he glanced around at the guests, searching for Vine, but she was nowhere to be seen. He was expecting her to come up to him, argue with him, ask him questions, but she didn't even give him a glance. He had not thought that she would give him up so to someone so easily. Without asking any question, after reaching the stage, he looked around the garden again, and that's when he saw her sitting at the very back, dressed in casual clothes with the servants. She had dragged herself so much that she had chosen this spot for herself. He was left wondering. The priest began the rituals, and the two of them signed some papers, and the wedding came to the end. Everyone clapped again, and one silently watched as he became someone else. Jungkook saw her. He was silently looking at Emma, but even from a distance he could see that there was a smile on her lips, but she was crying. He saw wine red eyes, her weak face, and blood stained bandage on her head. She had not even bothered to change it yet. Today she had lost everything and was once again alone just like before, but this time she had painful memories to accompany her. Jungkook stood there frozen looking at her, seeing her cry for the first time, and he was the reason for her tears and pain. Wayne wiped away her tears and stood up, her tears not stopping, and after trying to be brave she didn't want to break down in front of anyone. Having completely destroyed herself and lost everything, she took weak steps, walking inside while everyone was busy congratulating the new couple.
As she entered the guest room, she went to the washroom and splashed water on her face again. She didn't want to cry over his infidelity, but her tears wouldn't stop. Why I'm crying? I am crying for someone who was never mine, who belonged to someone else before me and still belonged to someone else. Why did he lie to me? Why did he deceive me? Why did he always keep me in the dark? Why did you always express false to me? Why, if you had not?
Show me so much love, maybe I wouldn't be in so much pain today because of your deception. You should have done this. Jungkook. She came out of the room. She had to go to the office in the morning. Her wedding leave had ended today and all her belongings were in Jungkook's room. She didn't want to go to Jungkook's room, so she stopped in the hall and waited for a servant to arrive so she could ask them to bring her belongings. After waiting for a long time, she didn't see any servant in the house. Everyone was busy outside with the wedding. She looked at Jungkook's room door with helplessness. Why, just one last time. Everyone is outside. They have not come to the room yet. I just need to pick up my things and leave. Closing her eyes, she was gathering courage to go into the room where she used to enter with full rights, but today it felt like a crime. Standing outside the room, she opened the door and entered, but she was startled to see the person inside, and she became nervous. On the place where she had sat in front of the mirror, getting ready in her wedding dress, someone else was sitting, and it was for the same person. While Emma turned around, sensing her presence. "Emma, you are here," Jungkook said. "You won't be staying in his room anymore. That's why he left me here." Her words hurt Vine's heart again, so he had already thrown her out of his room before she leaves his room. She looked down, avoiding Emma's gaze, and at that moment Emma seemed like the luckiest girl in the world to her, the one who had received Jungkook's love and was part of his life. She didn't want to stay there any longer and hurt herself more, so she moved forward to pick up her belongings. Just as he opened the door and entered, he came in, and seeing him in the room made Fine heart stop. The person she used to feel comfortable with was now making her feel uneasy. Jungkook, what are you doing here? He asked in a cold tone, seeing her alone with Emma in the room. His cold tone made Vian's throat dry, and she couldn't even speak. If you have come here with some useless thought or to say something to Emma, Vian, don't even think about it. My wife is pregnant with my 3 months old child. Don't even try to cause her any trouble. If you any to cause her any mental or physical harm, I won't tolerate it at all. Remember that. He spoke in a very harsh tone and Wang looked at him with uncertainty and did he think she was such a fallen and bad girl? Was the pain he had given her before not enough that he was now causing her even more pain with his words and tone? Tears gathered in her eyes and her lips began to tremble badly. She pressed her lips together tightly to stop the trembling. Jungkook saw her lips trembling like a small child as if she was about to cry, and then he saw her composure and he realized the harshness of his words. He knew she was not that kind of girl, but in love people can do anything. She didn't want to cry in front of him, so she slowly nodded and walked towards the side table. She couldn't say anything, and if she had opened her lips even slightly, she would have burst into tears. She knew while he just kept looking at her. Stopping near the table, she looked at the ring in her hand. She wanted to keep the memory of Jungkook with her, but what was the point of keeping bitter memories? She took off the ring and placed it on the table, and picking up her laptop charger and bag, she walked towards the door, and stopping near the door, she held out the things in her hand as if to show Jungkook that she had only come to take her things, and that she was leaving with nothing of his, and then she looked down and walked out of the room. While Jungkook took a deep cold breath and saw the ring and walked towards the washroom while Emma just kept watching them both. As she entered her room, she locked the door and sat down on the floor. The tears she had been holding back began to flow, and she buried her face in her knees, crying uncontrollably. The sound of her sobs and gasps echoed in the room. The harsh behavior and infidelity of the person she loved so much was unbearable. When she was alone and had lost her parents, he was the one who had helped her overcome the shock, and now he was the one who had given her a deep wound that it was not just difficult but impossible for her to recover from. He thought she was a strong girl, that she could bear everything, but he forgot that she is also a human, that she also feels pain, and if he had seen her in so much pain, maybe he couldn't have done what he did. The person standing outside the door heard her sobs and screams and tightly closed his eyes.